Welcome to Beaver Stadium, home of the Penn State Nittany Lions, one of the largest crowds in college football assembled here. This is not your normal matchup. A battle of top 5 teams, 2 forces colliding here near the end of the season. Cannot wait for this one. Big playoff implications. As we'll see the number 2 team in the country, the Oregon Ducks, taking on the 6th-ranked team in the land, the Penn State Nittany Lions. For EA Sports College Football, I'm Chris Fowler, joined here in the booth by Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk, let's get to the action on the field. Kick this deep to get us going. And he'll lead the kickoff right there. We'll start from the 25. The guys up front lined up. It's first down. Using his legs, it's Singleton. The sophomore able to bring him down quickly.
They're just trying to establish the run. There's not much there, but give credit to that defensive line and those linebackers attacking the line of scrimmage to negate any chance at all.
Same tailback, another carry. The gain moves the ball to the 34.
It's not a huge gain here, but if you add up multiple runs like that throughout the course of a game, by the 4th quarter, you're going to start to see that affect the defense.
The offense will take their first time out of the half to talk strategy here.
Timeout, Penn State.
They need a yard here in 3rd down to keep this opening drive going. Can he get there on the ground? Tackle at the 40. That'll earn a fresh set of downs.
Boy, an opportunity missed here by this defense. They get him to 3rd down. They load up the line of scrimmage, but they could not deny this back of coming up with that conversion.
The Nittany Lions begin a new series here, 1st and 10. Takes the handoff. It's Singleton. Going to try to run inside, but nowhere to go.
Well, the defensive line does their job eating up those double teams, freeing up the backers to make the play.
2nd down play coming up. Oh, it's a reverse. And they'll tackle him for a loss of 5 yards.
The defense there showed incredible discipline on the backside contain, and that reverse wasn't going anywhere. Just textbook.
Offense gets set up here. It's 3rd down. Dropping back. It's Aller. Looks toward the sideline, finds the running back. Jukes past the defender. He's in the clear. That's a big gain deep into enemy territory. Ball down near the 30.
Boy, nice job here by this offense, creating an opportunity for this receiver to excel after the catch. It's early in this game, So this defense better get their arms around this receiver because he could be a monster today.
The Nittany Lions are moving quickly down the field. And from the shotgun, an inside handoff. Powers through. Defense finally gets him down, but he showcased the shiftiness on that play.
Great job by the offensive line here, opening up some holes and giving the running back room to run on first down. Plays like this can open up the playbook for the play caller, allow him to make that defense think, are they going to run? Maybe play action, maybe throw the ball downfield.
Now it's second down here. And the runner brought down after just a short gain.
Chris, you know, the spread era over the years has always grown offensively, but what I've been always impressed with defenses that really build their defense to play in space still have an ability to be sound at the line of scrimmage and defend a running game. It's exactly what we saw right there.
Third down and short on the 8th play of this opening drive. And they pick up the first on the ground. That's a good effort on the run, but the defense stops him just short of the marker. Fourth down now. So on their first possession of the game, the offense stays on the field, and they'll go for it. And the Nittany Lions are moving quickly down the field.
Well, these are the kind of situations you practice every week. You got to be able to get a yard. And the offensive line was able to give them just enough push to convert here on the ground. Clearly, they've done this drill before countless times, and it shows.
The Nittany Lions looking to take advantage of this red zone trip. On the run, it's Allen. Goes backwards, losing 3 yards there.
Chris, I think we all kind of get caught up in third down. What's an offense doing on third down? But I think what's also important is how well you defend first down. If you can hold your opponents to a short gain or a tackle for a loss, you throw the offense out of whack, and their game plan gets much more challenging to try to come up with that first down.
11th play of the drive coming up. They'll switch it up, looking to throw. Finds that big tight end for a short pass. They're finally able to stop, and the quarterback brings the big man down. Not easy to do with that size difference.
They're able to get a short gain to make this third down a little bit more manageable. But it is third and long, so this offensive line's got to be ready, do a good job of communicating, and pick up any potential blitzes here on third.
Drops back, needing a third down completion here. Incomplete, and that shot to the end zone.
Hey, it's an incompletion, but it's a nice job by the quarterback. I know it didn't pan out, but the most important thing is he didn't turn the football over, and he didn't take a sack. It'll give your kicker a chance to put some points on the board if they opt for the field goal here on fourth down.
The kick is good. Offense collects 3 points on the drive. It breaks the score.
Kick, everything there perfect to put 3 points up here for the offense.
They come away with 3 points on the drive, and now the kickoff team will boot it away. And that one will bounce out of the back of the end zone. The offense will start at the 25. Listen to the crowd energy here in the early going. This is a tough environment for visitors. And the defense will spend their second time out here to make some adjustments. This line getting set up. It's a first down play. Hand off to the single back. They'll stop him behind the line for a loss of 1. That was that excellent linebacker with a clear path just running downhill quickly.
You know, I think one of the great things about watching this guy play all year is his vision. He just has great instincts. That time, the defensive line ate up all the linemen, freed up the linebacker to get into the backfield, and the result is a tackle for a loss for the backer.
He went backwards on first down, so 2nd and long from the 24. Scanning the field, it's Gabriel. Receiver makes the grab. They bring him down quickly, a short pitch and catch to get a little bit closer to the marker.
Any good offense has to have a reliable, quick to intermediate passing game. Even though that wasn't enough for the first down, it's plays like this that help you sustain drives and not get stuck with 3rd down and long.
3rd down play here out of the shotgun. Quick throw to his receiver. He's got an open man downfield, and it's caught. Oh, and he's in the clear now. It's a foot race. And he takes it in for the score. Touchdown, Oregon.
Chris, how about that? A quick slant that goes for this many yards and a touchdown? That's what's so dangerous about this quarterback and wide receiver. The quarterback puts the ball right on the money, and by doing so, look at the receiver. Catches it in stride and has all that room to run after the catch for that touchdown.
And they're able to tack on the extra point. Getting set to kick the ball off now. He thought about returning it, but instead takes a knee. It'll be a touchback, and they'll start at the 25. And the first play of the drive now from the 25. They'll go with the ground game here. Running back takes the handoff. They'll tackle him right at the 31. Important 2nd down play coming up. There's the handoff. Offense stopped behind the line. A big play by the defense to wrap up the first period.
That's the end of the first quarter. Oregon 7, Penn State 3.
First play of the quarter is a crucial one. Offense trying to convert this 3rd down. And the offense spends their final timeout of the half here to talk strategy. So ball at the 30. This is a manageable 3rd down play for the offense. Quarterback pre-snap adjustments now for this defense. To the air, it's Aller. It's a short completion to the big tight end. He's tackled quickly, but the yardage is good enough for the first down. The Nittany Lions come to the line to start a fresh set of downs. Looking to throw it on first down. Fires it to the wideout. He makes the grab. An explosive play. Big gain across midfield to the 42.
That's a nice completion to the sideline with great timing. The connection between the receiver and the quarterback was on full display to be able to get that first down.
On 1st and 10 here, looking to throw the ball. Ball's incomplete, broken up by the defender nicely that time.
Well, this is just an outstanding job by this defender being in phase against this receiver and being able to tip that ball away. He actually tips it up into the air. The offense catches a break that ball's not intercepted.
Looking to throw it again. Gets the ball up as he's hit, but it's incomplete.
Well, it's pretty simple. The defensive line does a great job of getting after the quarterback and forcing him into that incompletion.
They're back. Dropping back, looking to throw for the first down. Catch made on the out route. The defense will wrap him up after about a 6-yard gain. Not enough for the first. It's fourth down.
Fourth down.
They'll change the pre-snap look now. Needs a completion here on fourth down. The ball is picked off. Not much on the return, but that's an important takeaway. Sets up the offense at the 34.
What a great job here by the safety to anticipate where the quarterback was going to go with the football. That gave him enough time to be able to get over and break on the football in time for the interception.
On the ground, it's James. They've got him down out near the 40.
I'll take that every single time. Offensive line does a nice job up front. This back's vision and ability to get positive yards by lowering his pads on full display right there.
Second down after that run on the previous play. Off play action, he's looking to throw. With the catch, it's Stewart. They tackle him. Looks like it's going to be just short of the mark, inches away.
Well, it's a game of matchups. Always has been and it always will be, especially on the perimeter. And the quarterback believes his guy is better than their guy.
Offense looking to keep the drive going here. Third and short now from the 44. Here's the option play. The back's got to run the pitch. He'll be stopped for a loss on the play. The defense all over the option that time.
That's a great play all around by this defense. Your first-level defenders hold their own at the point of attack, allowing the second and third-level players to roam free and make the tackle close to the line of scrimmage.
Fourth down and 2 in their own territory. Coach shows no hesitation. The offense is on the field. Dropping back, it's Gabriel. Finds his receiver. That's enough for the first down. He goes down right there, but it's enough for a fresh set of downs for this offense.
Well, the defense is in the right coverage here. Looked like they had exactly what they wanted to be able to come up with a stop here on fourth down. But there's the timing between a quarterback and the receiver. They knew exactly where they needed to go. Great timing and a first down.
They'll run it here. And he's able to find some running room. Nice pickup.
I tell you, to be able to pick up a nice gain like that, those offensive linemen have to sustain their blocks. Gave him a chance at a really nice gain.
Second down after that run on the previous play. Takes the snap and takes off on the run. They tackle him, but the gain moves the ball to the 36.
These quarterbacks today in the college game are so athletic. They can beat you with their arm, obviously. But just when you think you have them figured out, they tuck the ball and go. I'd expect this defense to put in a spy to keep this quarterback from running.
Oh, they've got him for a sack. A big play made by the junior.
I like the call here, but you can't run long, developing play-action passes like that if the offensive line is not going to give the quarterback time to throw.
After the sack on first down, it's second down. From the gun, he looks for an open man. Throws it to the right. That's going to be incomplete. A lot of contact, no flag, brings up third down.
I know this guy believes in his receivers. I don't blame him. There's a lot of talent out there. But throwing into double coverage like that, that's how you throw picks.
third down here. Time for perhaps one more play before the 2-minute warning. Here's a shot toward the end zone. And he's got it. Touchdown, Ducks.
You put 5 wide receivers into a formation, that puts so much pressure on the defense. Do you have enough guys that can cover? Quarterback does such a good job of finding the weakness and exploiting it.
PAT is good, so the lead now is 11. Here's the kickoff team now, set to boot this one away. Kick bounces out of the back of the end zone for a touchback. First down here. Time for one more play before the clock stops for the 2-minute warning. Ball handed off. And just a short gain this time. They're able to get him down. So we've reached the 2-minute warning, and this offense trying to get something going here and cut into this lead before halftime. Offense getting set. Second down play here. Looking downfield. It's Aller. He's a wide open receiver, complete. And he busts loose right down the middle. It's a foot race. And he takes it all the way to the end zone. Touchdown, Nittany Lions.
I love to watch this quarterback go out and execute in this kind of situation. He's doing a great job of ignoring the scoreboard and feeling a sense of pressure to have to play with more urgency. Right now, he's executing. We're only in the second quarter. Plenty of time to get back in this game.
Pitch to point is good. They draw within 4 at 14-10. Kickoff team's on the field. Let's see if they give the returner a chance to bring this one back. And that one will bounce out of the back of the end zone. So a touchback will start at the 25. And the Oregon offense is back out on the field. We have a shootout developing here. Each offense scoring a touchdown in their last possession. On the ground, it's James. Tackled behind the line. It's a loss of 2. Well, they don't block the defensive end, who shows some quickness, Kirk, getting around the edge that time.
Yeah, this guy's usually getting around the edge to put pressure on the quarterback, but he reminds everybody here that this guy's a complete package. Not only can he pressure the quarterback, but also he is very, very talented and shows you the physicality he has against the run as well.
They try a downfield shot. That's a good effort there, but now it's third down.
You know, I like the quarterback's patience here, and instead of trying to force the issue and squeeze the ball into coverage, he just decides to just basically throw it away.
And he lofts it toward the sideline. The catch is made for a huge pickup. Touchdown, Oregon. Just ran away from the defense.
Well, if you're going to give it to him, he's going to take it. That's his third touchdown today against this defense. Whether they play zone or they play man, he's finding ways to win matchups and get the ball to the end zone.
On the kick, hits off the left upright. It's no good. Kickoff team has come on the field now to send this one away. And he takes this from inside the 5. And he stopped at the 19. Good job by the coverage team.
Nittany Lions will take over. First and 10.
the Nittany Lions offense retakes the field. Time is running out before halftime to cut into this now two-possession lead. He moves the ball out past the 25-yard line.
Man, you know, the back gets a lot of the attention here. He's a good back. I'd love to see that offensive line win the battle of the line of scrimmage.
Offense getting set up. Here's second down. Looking to throw. It's Aller. Catch hauled in here over the middle. What a move. Breaking ankles and still going. Oh, and he breaks free. It's a foot race. And a huge gain before he's forced out of bounds. Big yardage to set up a fresh set of downs.
Boy, huge play by this offense. A good throw, a nice accurate throw. But I think it's the run after the catch that really impresses me. And early in this game, you got to think they're going to continue to go back to him until this defense shows that they can slow him down.
The senior able to make the stop after a short game. But crank up the tempo here with the clock ticking down. Second down. Gonna run it. It's Wallace. And they tackle him, but not before he picks up the first.
Look, I realize on any play call, when it's properly executed, it can go to the house for a touchdown. But the runs that really make a game plan work are the ones where you get just what you need. And he barely got the first down.
Game here with the running back. And that's a solid gain before the defense is able to bring him down. And the Nittany Lions come to the line to run the hurry up. And they'll keep it on the ground. Running back has the handoff. And he'll get the first down yards before they finally bring him down.
Sometimes I almost get mesmerized watching these runners who have great vision. You know, the eyes that carry their feet to the open space, making people miss. I just love watching those guys do work.
Quarterback leaves the pocket on the move now. And it's a throwaway. That's a good call down here in the red zone on first down.
Well, sometimes an answer for an offensive coordinator against a good pass rush is to move the launching point, move the quarterback from one spot to another to affect the rhythm of the pass rush. That's not having any kind of impact at all on this defense. They're getting after this quarterback no matter where he is. They do a good job of it right here.
Long enough and good. And that will do it for the first half here. Kevin Connors now has our halftime update. The Nittany Lions will kick this away to get the second half going. That one bounces through the end zone, so they'll start at the 25. And that powerful Oregon offense retakes the field. They'll start the third quarter here on the ground.
It's a good, solid game. 5 or 6 yards. Love to see that from the running game.
Second down after that run on the previous play. Always looking to throw. And he's got his man open downfield. Oh, and nothing but green grass ahead. Takes it all the way to the house. Touchdown, Ducks.
This guy can do it all. We've seen him go behind coverage and make plays downfield. We can see him catch the ball underneath, just like this. And when he catches a football, he is so dangerous after the catch. This one leads him into the end zone for the 6 points.
And the kick is up and good. They tack on a point to their lead. Kickoff team on the field getting set now.
27, Penn State, 13.
So no return here. He takes a knee in the end zone, and they'll begin the drive at the 25. Penn State offense comes back on the field. Difficult to win games kicking field goals. To cut into this lead, they got to find the end zone. He's past the marker and still going. Whips off a big gain. Finally tackled at the 46. They trust the left side of that offensive line and come up with a huge play on the ground.
Yeah, your favorite, Chris, there. The old pin and pull there to the left side. Great blocking on the left side, able to create a great push. Nice crease, and the back found that with the vision and picks up some big yards for that first down.
First down play call. How aggressive will it be? Looking to throw. It's Aller. The defender gets a hand in there to break the pass up.
In college football today, the quarterbacks get rid of the ball often so fast that this is a great example for young players on the defensive line. If you can't get to the quarterback, watch their eyes and try to get your hands up so when the ball comes, you can knock it away.
Quarterback adjusting now to the defense. He's back to throw again on 2nd and 10. It's a quick grab. They bring him down just short of the marker, inches away from a first down.
The key here, Chris, is the timing by the quarterback. The fact he got the ball out quickly gave his receiver a chance. One more hitch or a slight hesitation, and that's an incompletion or an interception.
Third down. The offense desperately needs a conversion here, trailing in the third quarter. Can he make it to the marker? Tackled at the 33. That's good enough for a first down.
Well, that shows you the trust they have in their offensive line in this running game. To get to a third down, just trying to come up with a way to be able to keep this drive alive, keep hope alive that you can come back in this game. You rely on old reliable, that offensive line, and they come through for you.
The Nittany Lions are moving quickly down the field. On first down, they'll keep the running game churning. Defense gets him down, but they'll take the gain on that play.
Nice solid run here by this back. Did a nice job of just kind of finding that lane, pick up some positive yards there on 1st and 10.
Second down after that run on the previous play. From the shotgun, drops back looking for an open man. That one falls incomplete, looking for a flag, doesn't get it. Brings up third down. And the Nittany Lions will hustle to the line to run the hurry-up offense. Dropping back, it's Aller. Oh, it's incomplete. That's a good job of the defender to break that up. Still down by double digits in the third quarter. They're going to go for it on 4th down. Receivers now getting some new assignments before the snap. Fourth down, look at a throw for it. Finds his man, has the first down. And the gain just good enough for a first down. They bring him down, but the junior quarterback showing off the cannon.
Just great execution here on this 4th down to keep this drive alive. And what I love is the accuracy from the quarterback and a good job by the receiver knowing where that route needed to be able to catch the ball and pick up the first down.
Looking to throw it from the red zone. The pass rush closing in. The junior trying to take a shot, but overthrows his man. Incompletion makes it 2nd down. Looking for a gap. It's Singleton.
I think this defense keeps thinking about them throwing the football, and by doing that, they're opening up running lanes. Good positive yards there by the running back.
It's third down. Quarterback in the shotgun. Oh, nice play by the defender. Got a hand in there to break up the pass. The offense trailing here in the second half. This is a crucial 4th down try. There's the snap, and he's looking to throw. On the run here, lets it go. Grab down the middle. It's Evans. And he's not going to get there. The defense rises up and makes a huge 4th down stop. And this crowd coming to life here, trying to help the defense get a stop with the offense pinned back. And now the handoff.
You know, in the era that we live in right now, everybody wants to spread the field around, try to create space, try to create one-on-one matchups, and the defense is countered over the years by trying to play out wide. But here's a great example. The defense has the ability to play wide, but still be solid at the line of scrimmage, not give up big run plays.
We'll try to run it with the option. They get him down. The gain is to about the 12. So let's see what they like here on 3rd and short from inside their own 20. Important to pick up this first down. Back to pass. It's Gabriel. Incomplete. He was hit as he threw the football there on 3rd down.
We finally see a change-up from this defense. It has been a long game for this defensive coordinator. A lot of touchdown passes. They finally find a way to affect the timing between the quarterback and his receivers by getting
brought down by the coverage team. And the Penn State offense is back out on the field. Oh, here comes the reverse. Runner finding some space there. That's a solid gain on the ground.
I'm a fan of any time you can get the ball into his hands. I think it's a win. Didn't go for a huge amount of yards, but it's the threat of what it potentially can do, and it gives him another opportunity to get his hands on the football.
Tackled behind the line. It's a loss of 2.
Well, I don't think the offensive line gave the back much of a chance at all. Now, give credit to the defense. It was almost like they were anticipating a run and got up close to the line of scrimmage in a hurry.
3rd down. This offense could really use a conversion here, down multiple scores. There's the snap. Quarterback setting up the throw. Caught behind the line. It's Singleton. And uses his speed to pick up solid yardage.
This is a big conversion by this offense. They're down now in the second half. Probably limited opportunities at this point in the game. Every chance you get your hands on the ball, you need points. They keep this drive alive right here.
The Nittany Lions will have 1st and 10 here. Moving the receiver around pre-snap. First down. They're going to throw the football. Oh, it's picked off. What a play. Short return tackle at the 21, but that's a huge takeaway for this defense.
Boy, would this quarterback love to have this one back. They're trying to work themselves back into this game here in the second half, and the defense comes up with a big turnover that could be the nail in the coffin.
And the Oregon offense comes back out on the field. Using his legs, it's James. And he'll maybe get back to the line of scrimmage, but no more than that.
That back just had nowhere to go. Got to give credit to the defense and their run fits on that play.
What's the play call here on 2nd down for this offense? The gain is just 1 yard. Sets up a 3rd and 9 down. Not going to be easy here. Backed up a long way to go for a first down. Looking to pass. It's Gabriel. Tries the right with a quick throw. Finds a man downfield. It's a big gain to the right. They stop him at the 47, but that's enough for a first down.
25 on the play. First down for the offense. That's the end of the 3rd quarter of play. With the score, Oregon 27, Penn State 13.
A new set of downs after that completion. Now here's the toss play. And he's able to find some room before they finally bring him down.
That's exactly how you want to start this drive, working with a lead in the fourth quarter. Take as much time off this clock as possible. That's a great way to get this drive started.
The back's got it. Zero running room. Stopped right at the line of scrimmage. The Ducks come up to the line in a hurry-up. Try and muscle for the first down. They make the stop just short of the marker. It's going to be fourth down and inches to go. The Ducks will come to the line looking to keep the drive going on fourth down. Here we go on fourth down. He did not get it. A crucial play by this defense. What a fourth down stop.
Wow, Chris, I don't know. You've got control of this game, and you go for it here? A little bit confusing. Why even allow your opponent any chance of anything? Finish out the win and just punt it away.
Looking downfield, it's Allen. Oh, the quick throw falls incomplete. So after the incompletion, it's second down. Fields stop the ball at the 44.
Hey, it's a nice gain here, and they get the first down to stop the clock. But late in the game, trailing by a couple scores, these receivers have got to be thinking about getting out of bounds as often as they can to preserve that clock, to give them a real shot to come back to win it.
On 1st and 10, they'll look to throw it. Physical defending. That one falls incomplete. Brings up second down. Quarterback making adjustments now to what the defense is showing. Looking to pass here on second down. And that's just thrown away. A pretty obvious intentional grounding call. Yeah, here's the marker. Challenging play for the offense. They face third and long here from their own 43. Back to throw again. Can't hold on. Good defensive play. Brings up a fourth down.
Well, that's not what you want to see as an offense when you're trailing late in a football game. An incompletion on third down and long. Hey, it's a bit of a risk, but with that clock looking the way it looks right now, I think you got to go for it here and hope to convert on fourth and long.
29 Philly. 2-9 Philly.
Trying for a fourth down completion. What a job to lay out and make the catch. The decision to go for it doesn't pan out.
Well, down late in this football game by more than a possession, they obviously had to go for this, but they just couldn't come up with the execution.
And the powerful Ducks offense retakes the field. Last time out there, they got stopped on fourth down, but it didn't cost them anything. Let's see what the mindset is here. Pressure is coming. Here's a screen pass to the running back. Defense flies in. They make the tackle behind the line of scrimmage.
Boy, just a great job here by this defense, sniffing out the screen. They were not fooled at all. He caught that ball. He had nowhere to go, and it's a loss of yardage.
Back to throw. It's Gabriel. Junior steps up and makes an impact play.
Well, you got to do a better job with your fake as the quarterback. The defense did not bite at all in the play action, allowing them to continue to come after the quarterback and come up with that sack.
Offense facing a third and long from the 25. What's the call going to be? Here's the snap, looking to throw. Incomplete. He was hit as he threw the ball. That's a big third down defensive play.
Chris, I just don't know about this call. I like the aggressive approach, but at this point, late in the game, playing with the lead, third down and long, maybe you run the ball. You know, work that clock. Continue to think about the big picture. Now you're facing 4th down and long, and I think you got to punt it away and hope the defense can secure a victory.
And the Nittany Lions offense retakes the field. First down, looking to throw the ball. And it's incomplete. The defender arrived the same time as the football, and now it's 2nd down.
Everything about this play tells you about today's offenses and what they're asking out of their running backs. You can't just be a guy who runs the football anymore. You have to be able to catch it as well, and he didn't do a very good job of it on this play.
Quarterback looking to pass here on 2nd down. The pocket breaking down. And it's the senior getting home with the sack. The Nittany Lions come to the line in the hurry-up. The quarterback making some changes at the line. Receiver in motion now. Looking to throw it on 3rd and very long. That one is incomplete. The defender was right there, and it brings up 4th down now.
Boy, this is all about the defense here. Nice stop here on 3rd down, but really it's about trying to get this offense behind the sticks. Once you get them behind the sticks, you can mix up your coverages, really affect the quarterback's eyes and disrupt the timing and the rhythm of what the offense is trying to do. Now we've got another big 4th down coming up.
Down late, they'll keep the offense on the field trying to chip away at this lead. Back in motion now. And he's throwing for it on 4th down. And it's incomplete. And the drive will fizzle out here in the final minutes.
Well, I don't blame the offensive coordinator here. It's the right thing to do down a couple scores. They just didn't execute.
And the Ducks' powerful offense is back on the field. This group is coming off a quick 3-and-out. Can they put something together in this drive? They'll use that running game, trying to bleed the clock here. Tackled behind the line. It's a loss of 2.
Chris, good job here on that stop, but remember the ball is inbounds and the clock keeps moving here late in the game and you're trailing. As a defense, you got to start thinking about utilizing those timeouts. You got all 3 to use, but what point are you going to start putting those into play?
Getting set. Here's 2nd down. And the tailback's got it again. They'll stop him behind the line for a loss of 1.
Well, these obvious running situations are very tough when you're working with the lead late in the game because you know the defense is going to stack the line of scrimmage, make it as difficult as possible for you to run the football. So nice job there by the defense. They're trying to punch that ball out, do anything they can at all to get the ball back.
They don't want to waste this good field position, but it's 3rd down and long. A pop pass on the jet sweep. They stop him, but it's a 1st down.
The defense has got to do a much better job here of adjusting to the pre-snap motion. They just kind of stayed in place, and it gave the receiver plenty of room there to make a nice play.
And the Ducks hoping to punch it in here. They have 1st and goal. It's an option look. He'll pitch it. He'll make it into the end zone. Touchdown, Oregon. So the offense flexing and stretching their lead here in the 2nd half.
Yeah, that touchdown gives you a little bit more breathing room, but now it's up to your own defense to help preserve that lead so you can go back out and build onto it in the 2nd half.
Extra point up and good. A 3-touchdown lead now here in the final quarter. Now they get set to kick it away.
34, Penn State, 13.
And he's going to bring this out from a couple yards deep in the end zone. And he's brought down at the 16. Would have been better off leaving it in the end zone for a touchback. And the Penn State offense comes back on the field. Well, this has been a disappointment. They've had their doors blown off here, just playing for pride at this point. Looking to pass. It's Aller. That's incomplete. Even on a first down pass attempt, he felt heavy pressure. And the Nittany Lions will come to the line to crank up the tempo. The quarterback appears to be changing the play. After the incompletion, QB tries it again on 2nd and 10. Pass not complete.
Boy, this offense has really struggled today, Chris, when it comes to throwing the football. They have dug themselves a huge hole. They're not going to have any chance of coming back. And I think one thing about this is you wonder where you go from here. You're hoping to make a play or two to give yourself a belief that things can get better, but it's just been a disastrous day for the offense.
He'll drop back here on 3rd down. Looking for the wide out. Downfield shot falls incomplete. Couldn't quite connect there.
How about the defense today? They have played so well. I think the defensive coordinator put together a great plan. His kids clearly understood their scheme because they have been aggressive and attacking all game long.
Running it back, it's McClellan. Good effort by the return man. They get him down, but that's a solid gain on the return. And the Oregon offense is back out on the field. What a satisfying feeling for this team. Just run out the clock and let the celebration begin. A solid 8-yard gain brings up a 2nd and 2.
That's the mark of a well-coached team. These guys don't even pay attention to the score. They're just out there executing and churning up yards. Good, solid run there. As this clock continues to wind down, this offense has had a great day.
2nd down after that run on the previous play. And they'll use the ground game here. He stopped just short of that first down marker, inches away from it. Offense breaks the huddle and gets set. It's 3rd down. To throw, it's Gabriel. Tries to beat the pressure with a deep shot. And he finds a wide open receiver. They forgot about him downfield. Touchdown, Ducks. And this one is getting ugly. They're setting out to try the PAT. The extra point is good, and they stretch the lead a little bit more.
That makes the score Oregon 41, Penn State 13.
Here's the kickoff team. Let's see if they give the returner an opportunity to bring this back. Looks like the returner will try and field this one. And the coverage team able to bring him down. And the Penn State offense is back out on the field. They need a miracle. A couple of them here in the last couple minutes. Down big. Here comes a 1st down pass attempt. Receiver looks it in. It's complete. It's a nice gain. They move the football up to the 27.
I love how this quarterback is finding this slot receiver. Not only is he tough to handle, but it's what he's doing after the catch. He has such wiggle and quickness. He's tough to bring down, and you see more positive yards after the catch here.
On 1st and 10, looking to throw. Wow, a 3rd pick tonight by the QB. Big takeaway, now looking for a big return. So a great return following the pick. They're finally able to get him down.
Well, that interception really about cost them the game here. And I understand. You got to do everything you can to get back in it, down by a couple scores. But the interception, for the most part, seals the deal for the defense.
Pitches to the back. And the defense smothers him for no gain. This one ended up being a blowout trip. They get the W, but they also make a pretty strong statement here today.
Yeah, I thought this game would be a lot closer, at least closer than how things ended up. But give credit to this team for coming out with a good game plan and just dominating the game.
And that is going to wrap it up. We enjoyed this one here. For Kirk Herbstreit, I'm Chris Fowler, and this has been another presentation of EA Sports College Football.